Hi everybody, I'm Jeff Murphy and I'm going to talk to you about adjustment layers in Adobe Photoshop. I probably should have had that on the screen at the beginning, but whatever. I'm going to throw it away now anyway. Okay, throw away the color fill and show you where we're at. Last tutorial we selected Quinn and we output that selection and that layer to a new layer with a layer mask, which we moved into this document. I'll actually call the background muddy field. So we have Quinn. We should probably title him Quinn too, right? Or Quinn also. Quinn spelled with two I's. Here we go. So Quinn with his layer mask against the muddy field. All right, now the first thing I noticed when I looked at this is he doesn't look like he's standing in the field because he has no shadow, so we should quickly make a shadow. So new layer, call that shadow, and we'll move the shadow under Quinn. Just click on him and drag him down. And the shadow will be easy. We'll take a brush, we'll take black, we will make a bigger brush. Now I have a brush with a soft edge, and then I can just draw under here. You don't want to go out too far because if he's standing on the ground, he'd probably be a little bit in the mud. I should probably figure out a way to put him in the mud, but we'll save that for a later document. All right, a little bigger. Do some back here, some in there, some around the handle of the. All right, now the beauty of having it on its own layer is that I can do a few things, like I can make it a little bit transparent. I can blur it if I need some more blur to it. Add a little bit of Gaussian blur, but not too much. You don't need much, actually. And I can still erase pieces of it that may not make sense to me, like that piece right there. I don't think I need. Okay, so that looks better, except you probably noticed, if you're paying attention, there's a little goober right here where I don't have the mask quite to my liking. Let's turn the shadow off. See, that's part of my Quinn layer. So I can get rid of that. I can click back on my layer mask and keep editing that. I was editing it in the last tutorial. I still have that mask. I can get a smaller brush with my bracket on my keyboard, or I can control click and bring up my brushes, however I want to do that. I find using the brackets easiest way. And then remember, black is my masking color. So I can come through here, and when I get to these little tight edges, I can shrink it down. Okay, I'm always using a soft brush because it looks so much more natural. Right. Once I put the shadow in there, this will look a lot better. I'm going to just turn it on, turn the visibility, finish. All right, much better. I think there was a little. Let's see, that is this. I could probably fix a little bit down here too. I don't know if that looks exactly right. Fix his boot. Such that shovel. All right, much better. All right, we fixed that up pretty nicely. Now we're ready for some adjustment layers. Okay, I should probably save this before I go on. But I won't. I'm going to risk it. Okay. Adjustment layers are awesome. There's this fourth icon down here. Let's make this thing black and white. That's all I have to do. I can play with these sliders and notice what I got. Now, this is affecting a blue, so my blue sky, I'm making my blue sky darker. This was affecting my reds, making the red areas darker. That actually makes the contrast, helps the contrast overall. But look, when I generated my adjustment layer with this icon, it gave me an adjustment layer. This is black and white because that's what I asked for. And the way this works is it affects everything under it. So if I move this down under Quinn, one will not be affected by it. If I move it to the top, every layer under there will be affected. Now, I can modify this. Watch, I can close this. If I double click on this, it brings it back up. And I can show you a important little checkbox that I did not use. yet. I'm not going to use it, but I want to show you it to you. See this third icon? This double circles? If I click on that, look what happens over here with my black and white layer. It becomes indented, and it points an arrow to the layer below, which is Quinn. Notice only Quinn is black and white right now. He is the only black and white thing in this. In this case, it's just affecting the layer right underneath it. It's clipping it to that layer. It's hooking it to that layer. All right? So in this case, I want everything black and white, so I'm going to uncheck that. So everything with black and white. But it's really handy to know that because you oftentimes want to adjust just one thing. And by default, what most people sometimes do, especially, and I have to remind myself of this a lot, is I'll actually go up here to Image, Adjust, and do something here. But that's not as good. That's actually going to affect my pixels of that layer and change my pixels. So if I apply a black and white filter to Quinn from my image adjustments palette up here, it'll actually make Quinn black and white, and there's no going back except use my history palette. Right? So it's not very flexible. It'll actually change the values of my pixels. An adjustment layer, on the other hand, will not change the value of my pixels. I can turn it on and off. I can throw it away. I can change the opacity of it, by the way, if I just want it mostly black and white or something like that. I can change the blending modes. I can do all that. So if your adjustment is available with an adjustment layer, use the adjustment layer. All right, that's my point in that. Okay, let's add one more adjustment layer. Let's do a photo filter. And we're going to do the warming one. It came up automatically because I had done that before, but basically you have all these. And those of you who have been working in photography a long time with black and white film probably know these numbers by heart. But in fact, you get to change them anyway with this density. But the colors are accurate based on the filter number. Okay, and I can even check this preserve luminosity checkbox if I want to preserve it. But in this case, I'm going to dull it down a little bit. Now I'm going to preserve it. I'll preserve it. Okay. Now, like all layers, these are stackable, so that if I drag this one under black and white, it would effectively render it useless because the black and white layer above it would take out any of the warming that I just put on. So let's put it back. All right, and there we're done. I want to do one more adjustment layer. Notice I haven't used the layer masks. Layer masks are automatically generated with your adjustment layer. So, you know, a lot of times, like if I wanted a black and white filter, but let's say I wanted this hat to still be yellow, I could just go and say, oh, you know what? I could go ahead and take my black brush, click on my layer, and mask that out right there. I could bring back his yellow helmet. You see this a lot in advertising. You know, something's a color object against a black and white field, so it really stands out. All right, I could do that. In this case, I want to add like a vignette to it. You know, like a black fade off where the edges are black. So I'm actually going to take my elliptical marquee, put some kind of feather on it, and just draw a marquee around him. Okay, that I'll sort of center it up. Doesn't need to be perfect. And then I'm going to inverse it because I want to go ahead and add a solid color. But watch, one of my options from my adjustment layer is solid color. But see, that's going to add it there, and I want it in opposite side. So I'll cancel this for a minute. I'll just say select inverse. And then I can come down here and say solid color. And look at that. Looks like a vignette.